You, Donald Trump, have taken the handcuffs off of DEA agents. And as a result of, since you have been in office, President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk.
Look at that. Listen to that stat, right? I mean, that's amazing. She's doing that, getting those drugs off of the street. They're actually doing things that make our lives safer. This is actually saving lives. Under her jurisdiction is DEA, ATF, all these other things that are keeping our country safe. Why? Because the priorities are straight. They know what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that's the key thing, in my opinion. All right, guys, good Thursday to you. We're on a glide path to the weekend, as I like to say. Today, I want to do something a little different. We focus a lot of time on the president and what he does, and it's a lot. You remember back when the 100-day mark happened, and I was talking about how there's a lot that happens that we forget or that just doesn't get the attention. And today, it started me thinking about this and was talking with the team. And there's this huge contrast that exists that no one else that I've seen, at least, has done anything on. If you go back, think about this for 1 second. Think about in the Biden administration, who was in his cabinet. Now, I think if you're a close watcher, you maybe say like Pete Buttigieg, Pothole Pete, because he used every opportunity to go out there and pretend like he was actually working, and he didn't. But he definitely got a lot of media attention because he was a darling. And he did a lot of stunts, like taking that bicycle and dropping it off a block before the Transportation Department and making it look like he rides a bike to work.
And when they took over, Buttigieg, who has no clue, he drives to work on his bicycle with his, in all fairness, with his husband on the back, which is a nice, loving relationship. But he didn't have a clue. This guy didn't have a clue. And he's actually a contender for president. Between him and Crockett, you can have that party.
So he did a lot of good PR stunts. He didn't actually do a lot. But I think he was emblematic of the whole cabinet. I mean, who was his labor secretary? Who was the energy secretary? I mean, people just didn't know. And now you contrast that with the Trump administration. Think about it. Almost everybody's a household name. It's such a different. And then also, not just the people, but the priorities. Every one of these things, it was all about pronouns and DEI and wokeness and inclusion. Not about what they're doing to make my life better, your life better, our lives better. That's what they're supposed to be doing. It's a government. They're supposed to be serving the people. And their priorities, I think, were completely backwards. These guys have it right. And I think it's worth walking through all that for a second. And so today, I'm going to do a deep dive that, again, no one else is going to show you. You're not going to see what we're about to do anywhere else. So do me a favor, when you're watching this or you're done with it, take the link and share it with 5 friends, because that's huge. By the way, you're always welcome to go to SeanSpicer.com to sign up for my newsletter. It is free, although I do love a good VIP subscription. It's always nice to give it away. Father's Day is coming up, so that's something nice too that you can give or buy for yourself, but there's actually a way to just gift it. All right. So I want to get into it. But before I do that, I want to tell you about some of the great people that make this show possible. You know what chaos looks like, don't you? You've got employees. If you're the person that's running a business or in charge of the finances, you probably spend most of your time running around, creating expense accounts, tracking down receipts, telling people what they can spend money on and what they can't, what the caps are. Well, I'm about to change everything for you. I want to introduce you to Ramp. This is a Ramp card. It looks just like a normal Visa card. And when you sign up for Ramp, you can get physical cards, virtual cards. It's an entire expense management system that integrates into your existing platforms right now and will save you so much time and money. It allows you to set up, whether you got 5 or 5,000 employees, systems so that you don't spend all of your day chasing down receipts. It integrates, it updates, and does things so seamless that you will be thankful when you switch over to Ramp. I switched my company over to Ramp. One of our guests did it. This is amazing. They've got a white glove onboarding system that will help help you. You can set up literally in minutes and get going. Ramp is unbelievable. 25,000 businesses, including Shopify and the Boys and Girls Club of America, have started using Ramp, and that's why it's named #1 in spend management by G2. And for a limited time only right now, listeners and watchers of this show get $250 in your pocket. $250 just by joining Ramp. Go to ramp.com/Spicer, ramp.com/Spicer. Cards are issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. If you're a longtime listener of the show, then you know my buddy Leo Grillo. Leo is the founder of Delta Rescue. It all started with one dog that he rescued, a Doberman he named Delta, that stood for dedication and everlasting love to animals. And that began the journey that Delta Rescue became. It is the world's largest no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter, a sanctuary. They help abused, neglected, malnutrition dogs get the help, the care, the feed, the veterinarian services that they all can be taken care of. And it doesn't matter. This is a place that they live out the rest of their lives, not a shelter where they're looking for a new home. Nope, Leo takes care of everybody. But the thing about Leo Grillo and Delta Rescue is that there's no big government grants coming their way. All of Delta Rescue is funded through the personal donations of people like me and you. I made a personal donation because I'm so impressed with what Delta Rescue does. Go to deltarescue.org and see if you can make a donation to help support the amazing work that Leo Grillo is doing there. And while you're there, click on that estate planning tab. And if you have an old 401k, an IRA, a stock that you want to get rid of, you might get some kind of tax benefit now after you consult with your financial planner to help make Delta Rescue an enduring mission that can go on for generations. Go to deltarescue.org and see what you can do. All right, let's get into this. I'm going to do this alphabetical. So we got a bunch of cabinets to get the cabinet and officials and departments to get through, but we start alphabetically with the Department of Agriculture. Now, here's the cool thing. I actually love the contrast here. This is a great place to start. So it's not just great because it's the first in the alphabet, but what Brooke Rollins is doing is the epitome of the difference. You guys recall that during the transition, we're dealing with all of these issues with food safety and whatever. And if you go to the Department of Agriculture's website at the time, they literally listed their top priority as DEI. I mean, think about how nuts that is. The Department of Agriculture, so that are responsible for food stamps, school lunches, our food safety, our food supply. And their number one issue is DEI. I'm like, okay, maybe number 10 if you're a liberal, but like the idea that you're putting that in front of everyone, and no one had a problem with that, did they? There was literally a quote that I thought was so perfect about what was happening during the Biden administration within the Department of Agriculture. There's this guy, his name's Chris Peterson. He's an independent Iowa hog farmer and former president of the Iowa Farmers Union. He said, Rome's burning, guys. We're disappearing. Approximately 92% of independent pig farmers are gone. And the infrastructure for that type of agriculture is going, and a lot is gone already. Small farmers say the moment offers an opportunity for the USDA. Secretary Vilsack and Biden approve whose side they're on. And they were on the side of DEI. That's what they were. Contrast that with Brooke Rollins, who comes in and it's like puts farmers, ranchers at the forefront. Market access, getting these guys into markets that they've never been in before. That's what they want. I told you guys this. I mean, speaking of pig farmers, I went and spoke to the pork producers earlier this year, and they were like, basically, if you look at the actual pig, we in the U.S. can only consume about half of it. So many parts of that pig need to get sold abroad, like the snout and the feet and whatever. Because I don't eat them. You probably don't, but a lot of people in a lot of other areas of the world do. They need to be able to export those pieces of the pig. But it's not just that. It's our meat, it's our produce, it's our farm fresh goods. And so Brooke Rollins put that back at the forefront. And I think it's important to understand, I want to show you a clip of her talking about the kind of stuff that they found, like even in the promo, the seeds, the swag at USDA. Take a look.
I call it woke seeds.
Should I do a quick video?
Hi everyone, it's Brooke Rollins here at USDA. We started really early this morning, as we always do, as we're here fighting for farmers and ranchers and putting Americans first. But you're not gonna believe what we just found. Behind a door at USDA, we found a whole box of these seeds. And listen, we love seeds here at USDA, but check these out. These are specific tomato seeds that are for growing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at USDA. I mean, look at these. If you can be anything, be inclusive at USDA.
So we're done with that. And we're focused on this. And the transition between this, what she's doing at USDA, and the next is critical because it actually segues nicely. It just happens to be in the alphabet, works that way. But the next thing I want to talk about is commerce and U.S. trade rep. But you think about what Brooke's doing, market access, and you think about when the president a couple weeks ago talked about this UK deal. The National Cattlemen Beef Association put out a statement praising the deal that President Trump struck with the UK. Thank you, Mr. President, for fighting for America's cattle and producers. And that segues nice into what is going on at the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Rep's office. So I'm combining them here, but they work hand in hand. Think about the deals the U.S. has gotten and what the president's doing on tariffs. Big, bold initiatives. I've said this before. For decades, we've known how unfairly we're being treated. Tariffs in all these other countries that prohibit or make it harder for our stuff to get into their countries. Our service providers, our manufacturers, our ranchers and farmers. And yet we almost have complete and unfettered access to our market. That's just not fair. So when people say free trade or fair trade, that's fine, but that's not free or fair. We all know that. And President Trump's been willing to fight for it and get results. And everyone's whining, oh, I'm going to pay more for 5 minutes. I get it. I'm sorry. Like, I don't want anyone to be adversely affected economically and not be able to pay for this stuff. But the bottom line is, if this was easy, somebody else would have done it. And he's fighting for this. And you think about what he's doing with Canada, with Mexico, getting better deals for the U.S., right? And you think about the UK deal and all of these other things that are falling into place, reducing tariffs, getting us better access. And I think there's more to come, but he continues to fight for us. But and Jamieson Greer explained it really well. He is the U.S. trade rep. Now, technically, it's separate, commerce, U.S. trade rep, but I think they work so hand in hand. I want to play you a clip of Jamieson Greer talking about this, what they're trying to do in this administration.
The president has been clear throughout the campaign and now during the administration that he thinks it's important to have a global tariff. Because remember, we're responding to what is an emergency. We have a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. It increased by 40% over the Biden administration. There's never been a deficit this high in human history for any country. And so we probably will always want to have some level of higher tariff until that's resolved.
Again, fighting for us. I don't even know who the U.S. trade rep was. Oh, Catherine Tai, is that it? Yeah, under Biden. I don't know. I mean, in fact, every story that you saw was her fighting with someone in the Biden administration, not actually doing anything. What a huge sea change. But it goes well beyond this because Howard Lutnick's the Commerce Secretary, and they have this website over there at the White House, the Trump Effect. I've told you this before. Deal after deal, investment in America. Apple, $500 billion. NVIDIA, $500 billion. SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle, $500 billion. IBM, $150 billion. Johnson & Johnson, $55 billion. Gentech, $55 billion. Novartis, $23 billion. Hyundai, $21 billion. Over and over. And it's like trillions of dollars of direct investment in the U.S. And you can't just, you can't just be like, oh, how did that just happen? It didn't just like come out of nowhere, fall from the sky. These companies invested in the U.S., and these aren't small amounts. I mean, no one just says, hey, let's just, appease President Trump by investing $500 billion. They did it because the policies that he's putting forward make it attractive to do business in the United States. All of this happened in like 100 and something days. So this is a huge and massive sea change. And I don't think to some degree we always see this in its totality. But think about this. When you talk about investing trillions of dollars in the United States, you're talking about massive amounts of jobs that get created. Manufacturing jobs. You're bringing back the base. This is so great. And I do think it's such a massive sea change. What were the announcements? You know what the announcements were, by the way, from the Commerce Department during the Biden administration? How much money the government would spend. The government. Here's how much we're passing of your money to invest in us. Not private sector money. It's a totally, totally different mentality. And the results speak for themselves. Trillions of dollars. When someone says, what's President Trump doing? Just go to that website, whitehouse.gov, / investments, the Trump effect. You cannot deny that his policies are having a consequential effect on our economy. All right, let me go down the alphabet. Big shift here from commerce and trade to defense. A massive, massive sea change here as well. Focusing on the threats that we face, the challenges that we have, deterring China in particular, in the Indo-Pacific region, and thinking about what we need to do to be stronger and better and more of a deterrent, right? Shipbuilding, getting back to focus on munitions. Do you realize that during Biden, when we're shipping stuff off to Ukraine, the dirty little secret, no one wanted to tell you this, is that we didn't have enough munitions to resupply ourselves. We kept telling you guys from Washington that we're just sending off stuff that we had in our stockpile. But the dirty secret was that there was nothing to replace it, putting us at risk. And it's not just that, which I think is a massive in itself, but it's also morale, getting people to want to be part of the all-volunteer force. Recruiting and morale was not doing well. What a flip that we've seen. The U.S. is now filling the ranks among all the services at record highs. The Army is up 23,586. That's 115% of its goal. The Navy up 16,201, 105% of its goal. The Air Force up 5,847. That's 106% of its goal. The Marines, who never have a problem, by the way, 13,329, 100% up. And by the way, the Marines never suffer, because if you want to be a Marine, well, you know you want to be a Marine. That's just a mentality there. But even Space Force is up 299%, 101% increase. I mean, I know the media loves to focus on Pete Hegseth and what platform he was sending a message on. But his focus is where it's supposed to be. And the results speak for it. Getting people ready to go. Understanding the threats that we face and why you're part of the military matters. This is Pete Hegseth addressing that.
We are leaving wokeness and weakness behind. No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that.
Yeah, we're done. We're focused. I don't mean to sound like an alarmist. If you watch the show for a while, you know that I've been talking about the threat that I think we face from China. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope I'm horribly wrong. But I'd rather be prepared and wrong than sit around in 5 years and say, see, I told you so. Because the consequences of being right are not good. And so to see a Secretary of Defense that's focused on the threats that we face and the mentality and the morale that we need to deter those threats is critical. And I think that's what I love about this. All right. From the D's to the E's, we go to the Department of Education. And what I love about the job that Linda McMahon is doing at the Department of Education is she said this in one cabinet meeting, Mr. President, I literally was hired to fire myself. We've talked about the Department of Education and eliminating since Reagan, okay? Since Reagan. And here is Linda McMahon talking about this. Take a look.
Now, let me just point out to you that the Department of Education was set up in 1980. We have now spent as a country over $3 trillion to watch the performance of our students continue to decline. And as I said in my confirmation hearing, we're just simply not doing something right. I don't think that education that is handled from a bureaucratic position in Washington, D.C. is best for the states. We'll continue with the funding. The Title I funding, that's one of the things that's questioned, and people are afraid they won't get Title I funding, or our IDEA funding for our disabled and special needs students. That will all continue to go to the states. It might go through a different agency, or it may go directly to the states. But education, I think, is going to have more funding going directly to the students, which is where it should be.
All right, that's Linda McMahon, right? You hear her saying this. It was set up in 1980, and we've spent $3 trillion and no results. Now, where else in the world would you accept that? But Washington. We throw a ton of money and the results don't improve. I just don't understand why there's not enough more outrage. It's unbelievable. You spend that much money and you see no result. We should have the best education in the world. And so anytime somebody says, "Oh, they're dismantling this," they better be, because this is our future. And right now we're telling people, send money to to Washington, and expect nothing in return. Maybe they're the ones who need an education after all. But beyond that, she's also doing a couple other things in this realm that I think are important. She's taking on higher education, revoking all this money from Harvard. And we're talking billions and billions of dollars. I mean, Harvard's got this massive $50+ billion endowment, and yet we continue to give them billions in federal money. They support anti-Semitism, a woke culture. I just don't understand why we think that this is a good idea. Again, maybe we need to educate ourselves more. But Linda McMahon is standing up and taking on Harvard and higher education, and I think that's great. She's also fighting in schools to make sure that we protect women, making sure that we protect women and girls in schools and don't allow some of this transgender stuff put them at risk. Because remember, all the left will tell you is like, oh, what about their rights and their feelings? What about the rights of these other women and girls that are being hurt or taken advantage of or whatever? I'm just saying, like, they always play to the lowest common denominator, but Linda McMahon's crushing it. All right, we stay in the E's. We move over to energy. Secretary Chris Wright, he delivered a 100-day recap on how President Trump was doing, and I want to show you that. Take a look.
Mr. President, you ran on unleashing American energy, and 100 days have shown the tremendous impacts that can arise from the unleashing you have enabled. I'll hit a few highlights. Number one, oil, gasoline, and diesel prices are the lowest they've been in years. How does that happen in 100 days? That's a messaging. Your message that we're pro-energy. We're not against energy, we're for it. That sends a message to the marketplace that supply is easier to grow now and supply will be coming. And that's already led to tremendous savings for American consumers across the country. And we need not only more affordable energy, but we need a lot more energy. One highlight I think a couple of us have touched on is AI. This is a new, emerging, critical industry that's very energy intensive. It is not acceptable for the United States to not be the leader in AI. We must win the AI race and lead in that, and that's going to take a lot more energy. If you had not won election, we would not have won the AI race. Full stop. Energy would not have been there to enable us to win. Reshoring of manufacturing. These trillions of dollars you led off with, it's going to come back to our country to make chips, to make steel, to make automobiles, to make artificial intelligence, to make all of these industries we've outsourced. That's only going to be possible with way more American energy. But we have that energy. We have those resources. We have those businesses. We have those capitalists. We just need to stop standing in the way of them and follow the lead you've set, which is to enable them, not to subsidize them, not to help them, to enable them to invest American money and create American jobs here. Regarding our balance of trade, the second largest export of the United States is liquefied natural gas. Second fastest. In the next few years, it'll be our largest export in our country.
So again, what's the focus? It's getting rid of the green energy and putting stuff for the focus of where it should be. Making sure that we're focused on actually real stuff that's going to, get us back to energy independence. No more big windmills that are bad for the environment. I mean, they've got the focus, and that's where it should be, and that's important. All right, we move now into the H's, over to the Department of Health and Human Services. Again, Bobby Kennedy, you would have told me this a year ago, I think I would have said you were crazy. But think about not just Bobby Kennedy leading this effort and the MAHA movement, but all the people. Dr. Oz at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. You got now Casey Means nominated to be the Surgeon General. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. Callie Means is an advisor over there. Marty McCary, the doctor that's heading the FDA. These guys are all rowing in the same direction. getting us healthy. How crazy is that? And again, I told you at the outset I wanted to show you the contrast. Javier Becerra was the Secretary of Health and Human Services leader under Biden. Do you know what his background is? He's a lawyer. So that's right. He chose a lawyer to lead us through a health pandemic. No wonder we didn't see much progress in our wellness. But here we are with these people that are leading the Mahab movement that have medical backgrounds. Dr. Oz, Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. McCary. Focus. Dr. Means. And they're not, like, the problem is, and Casey Means talks about this all the time. We have a system that's set up to deal with us once we get sick, not to prevent us from getting sick. Because guess what? That doesn't make money for big pharma and big food. That doesn't make us money. And so you've got RFK out there getting rid of red dye number 3, talking about things that lead to potential cancer and stopping them. Oh boy, isn't that crazy? We've got these petroleum dyes and all these other things, gain of function research getting killed. But you have an unmistakable change in the priorities of this administration when it comes to our health, our wellness, and our future than the last administration. Each one of these, as I go through them and I talk about them, I keep thinking, wow, it's not even close, is it? And when someone talks about what the president has accomplished or what he's done in 100, 150, 200 days, it's amazing to me that you can go through each of these departments as we are and go, oh yeah, that, and then that, and then that, and then this department and that department. There isn't a single one, as you guys are seeing, that we aren't actually showing real progress for. All right, let me move on to right now to Homeland Security, because again, I say this about each one because as you think about it, you can't help it. But tell me that this is probably not number 1 on the list, Homeland Security, where you can see a massive change, because this is something the president campaigned on, he talked about, and we all saw the consequences of in our communities. The open border policies of the Biden administration are over. And in 100 days, we saw how much quicker and how much safer. And again, you think about the team that's over there. I talked about it with Health and Human Services. Think about it here. You've got Kristi Noem, the secretary, Tom Homan, Steve Miller, Rodney Scott at the Customs and Border Patrol, ICE. We've had some of those guests on the show. I mean, Tom Homan laid it out real quick. The level of deportations that occurred. Take a look.
What's your total deportation so far?
Well over 100,000. I mean, I looked at the ICE arrests.
You're over 100,000 now.
Yeah.
So you wanted to take the worst first. Have you gone through the worst?
No, we got a long ways to go.
Well, who else is left?
Well, when we started
this
thing, it's just shy of 700,000 illegal aliens in this country with a criminal conviction or pending criminal charges. So we got a lot of work to do. I looked at the numbers the other day, just yesterday. ICE interior enforcement arrests are just below 75,000, which is 3 times more than Biden did in the same time frame when he was president. So ICE is making a lot of arrests, but there's more work to do. And actually, we had a series of meetings this past week. We're going to increase the number of the operation teams. We're going to increase worksite enforcement. Because of Sanctuary Cities policy, what we're going to do with Sanctuary Cities, we're going to flood the zone. So if one agent can't arrest one bad guy in the jail and they choose to release him in the community, it means I can send a whole team to look for him. So in Sanctuary Cities, we're going to flood the zones with agents. If we can't take them in the jail like we should, the safety and security of a jail, then we'll go to the community and find them. And that takes a lot of people. So if we can't arrest them in the jail, we'll arrest them in the community. If we can't find them in the community, we'll arrest them at the work site. We're going to increase work site investigations too. Less agents in the jail means more agents in the communities, more agents in the worksite. Let us in the jail. Let us arrest a public safety threat and the security and safety of a jail. Releasing a public safety threat back in the community, it's just foolish. It increases the threat of public safety. So we're going to do what we got to do to get these people off the street. I wish they let us in the jail. It'll be a lot easier, a lot more efficient, and a hell of a lot more safe.
What a difference. I feel safer. I think both of you guys do. The policy is completely shifted from letting everyone just come in, giving them a free cell phone and a gift card. And you think about this, right? The Democrats are whining about protecting gang members, people who abuse women. What's going on? This country, the differences used to be about taxes and the size and scope of government. Now you have one party that is saying, we believe that you should secure the border and keep criminals out. And another supporting the criminals. You think back, I've played these clips before about Democrats in the past who talked about, I mean, even Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama talked about the need for a secure border. It wasn't until Biden when they openly flouted it. You think about it. We had nearly 200,000 people a month flooding the country under Biden. 12 million. And these are low numbers. These are the ones that they say. I actually think the number is a heck of a lot higher. The number of people that came in was insane. And it's just come to an almost zero stop. Border encounters are getting down to close to zero. Unreal. I could go on in this thing, but I want to get to HUD, to the Housing and Urban Development. You remember that in the first term, that was Ben Carson. This is now being led by Scott Turner. We had him on the show. He talked about all of the changes that are being made in the area of housing. Take a look.
Just one day after standing up our task force at HUD, we uncovered $260 million in savings for the American people. After 1 week, we uncovered $4 million in canceled contracts for DEI cultural transformation, including outward mindset training and diversity and inclusion research subscription services. $4 million that could have gone to serve the American people, time wasted where we could have been serving the American people that we at HUD have been called to serve. But I will tell you this today, and I want to be very clear, that DEI at HUD is dead.
DEI at HUD was dead. You remember when we were over the White House, we had the opportunity to talk to Secretary Turner. He made that clear. Again, the focus is on what it's supposed to be. The focus is on housing and helping people and development, not about setting forth a woke agenda. All right. I want to talk about a department that doesn't get its due. This is another one that's interesting to me. The Department of Interior, Governor Doug Burgum, now Secretary Burgum. This is the drill baby drill department. We don't get a lot of attention on this one because people are like, what's the Department of Interior do? But these are the guys that are about mining, fracking, drilling. This is where it all happens in the Department of Interior. These are getting this effort is getting us back to energy independence. And it's also like, I think this is like, the other ones that I talked about get us like a lot of the headlines and the attention. Burgum doesn't get the big headlines and the attention, but he's doing an amazing job. Let me play you a clip of some of what he has to say.
Thanks to the leadership and vision of President Donald J. Trump, America is on the fast track to energy dominance. The Department of the Interior has played a big role in notable accomplishments made to increase production and make energy affordable again in the first 100 days of this administration. At President Trump and Secretary Burgum's direction, we are treating our natural resources as national assets on America's balance sheet.
So we're gonna mine, baby, mine. We're gonna get critical minerals going, so we're stop buying critical minerals from China. We're gonna map, baby, map, so we get the U.S. Geological Survey going back and actually discovering all the resources we have on Americans' balance sheet,
which are being sustainably developed to create good-paying American jobs, balance the budget, and pay down the national debt. Interior announced a dramatic overhaul of energy permitting.
Look, they're out there crushing this thing. This is, again, untold story, but this is what's getting us back to energy independence and the focus on what really matters, not the stuff that you didn't. I don't even know what the Biden administration was doing in this area, to be honest with you. But I want to move our focus now to the Department of Justice and the FBI. Again, Pam Bondi, Department of Justice, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino leading the FBI. The first 100 days, Pam Bondi, holy smokes, these guys are going after the bad guys. You see the focus. Remember all the lawfare, the weaponization, all that occurred under Biden? We are now crushing it. And I want to play you a bit of what Pam had to say when it comes to what they did in the first 100 days.
I was at DEA yesterday, and they said to me, you, Donald Trump, have taken the handcuffs off of DEA agents. And as a result of, since you have been in office, President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall and a Xanax, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dropping dead. And no longer because of you, what you've done. ATF, since you've been in office, President, along with DOJ agencies, seized 14,500 guns off the streets. Why aren't people reporting that? 651,000 rounds of ammo. That's up 151% from 2024. That's keeping America safe. We've rescinded death penalty. We are now seeking the death penalty on cases. I'm signing death warrants. We are going after terrorism. We are going after arsonists. Whether you're burning Teslas, we've arrested 9 people so far in 7 jurisdictions, no negotiations, 20 years in prison, or you're burning down the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. We will be there to protect you. And I've been talking to Governor Shapiro, and he greatly appreciated you reaching out as well. ISIS terrorist, we got one in New York, right around the corner. We got an ISIS terrorist in New York. We have an October 7th task force. We just broke up a huge human trafficking ring by the Sinaloa cartel. 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine on our streets. Ton of fentanyl, 20,000 Molly pills. Those are the drug of choice among at clubs and bars for young kids. They were fake, but you know what they had in them? Fentanyl. That's 20,000 lives saved because of you right there. We brought back 29 cartel members from Mexico at your direction, and one killed the Kiki Camareno, a DEA agent in 1985. And many of us got to talk to his widow and his son, who is now a judge. And they started crying. They have tried to get that guy back forever. And thanks to so many of you in this room working together, they have justice. They were crying on the phone because of what you did, President Trump.
Look at that. Listen to that stat, right? I mean, that's amazing. She's doing that, getting those drugs off of the street. They're actually doing things that make our lives safer. She's protecting us against child predators, rescuing 115 children across the country in the process. I mean, this is actually saving lives. They're not just going after the cases that she's talking about and the stuff that they're prosecuting or defending. But under her jurisdiction is DEA and ATF, all these other things that are keeping our country safe. Why? Because the priorities are straight. They know what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that's the key thing, in my opinion. All right. The Department of Labor is next on my list. Former Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer is the leader there. Again, just some stats. Doesn't fly above the radar here, but these job reports that keep coming in come in ahead of expectations. In April, it was 177,000. And again, because it's good news and it makes sense and it flies in the face of the narrative that the media has, they don't pipe that up. This was Biden. They'd be like, oh my God, guess what's happening? But the bottom line is that look at our jobs reports and what we're doing. And the results speak for themselves. Everyone's telling you everything's going to crash and be bad. Not when you look at the numbers, though. So anyway, I'll move over to Marco Rubio. Now, he is running the Department of State. And the funny thing about Marco Rubio, by the way, is obviously that's our focus because that's the cabinet job. But as you recall, he's got, he's the archivist of the United States. He's running USAID, which I guess isn't that big. I mean, it's kind of underneath there anyway. So it's kind of funny. But you think about all the stuff that falls underneath Marco Rubio in the State Department. These envoys that are out there rescuing and returning people. And we talked to Seb Gorka about that, right? But the hostage, the bringing Americans back. We talked about a couple, Mark Fogel, the ballerina, all from Russia coming back. That falls under the State Department. The negotiations on the Panama Canal, the Ukraine deal, what's going on in the Middle East. All of that is happening under the umbrella of the State Department. And the thing is that it's all happening as well at the same time that he's doing this massive reorganization. You remember we had Tammy Bruce on the show when we were over at the White House. I asked her about Ukraine. I talked to her about what we're doing with China. But then we also talked about this massive reorganization that Secretary Rubio is leading to make us more effective and efficient so that there's not these layers of bureaucracy that stand between what we're trying to do and what we're trying to communicate to our various embassies and consulates. And I actually give them a ton of credit because I think that the DOD and the Department of State are probably the two most bureaucratic places on earth. But Marco Rubio is leading this really great effort to not just streamline us, but to get us focused. So that's awesome. All right. After the S's, we hit the T's. That leads us to the Department of Transportation, where Sean Duffy is there. Listen, I feel like a father who's trying to decide which of my children is the best, which you never can. But there's a great thing. I feel like we went from Pothole Pete, who ran out to the cameras for every PR stunt. But think about this for a second, because this is how I do it. I was very critical that he shouldn't have gotten chosen in the first place, because Pete Buttigieg was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. It had 66 buses. I wrote that in my first book. Actually, no, my third book, Radical Nation. About what were his qualifications? When he got confirmed, Biden said, "I'm glad to have one of the youngest and first openly gay person in the cabinet," because Rick Grinnell had been acting, just so you know, when he was DNI under Trump's first term. And like, that's what he's qualified. I mean, like, that's what you're calling out, not his expertise, not his background. But think about this for a second, just to put this in perspective. The Secretary of Transportation oversees the highways, the seaways, the roadways, the airways. There wasn't one area where there wasn't a massive problem under Pete Buttigieg's leadership. Not one. He always had an excuse. But there was problems that plagued every area. And all he did was a series of PR stunts. He would get his bike brought to him by his security detail, dropped off a block before the DOT, get out and ride it and be like, "Look, I'm promoting bicycles." It was a joke. You take Sean Duffy, though, the current secretary. He's getting his hands dirty in a way that's unbelievable. This massive air traffic control reform that Duffy announced is so critical. No more kicking the can down the road. I mean, when you start to hear how the infrastructure of our current air traffic control is maintained, floppy disk, copper wires. I mean, seriously, it's unbelievable that we haven't had more issues in this space. But Sean Duffy's taking the challenge head on, and I love how forthright he's being, how active he's being, and he's taking the charge head on with industry leaders, congressional partners, making life better and safer for us. I mean, they think about Pete Buttigieg. He got billions of dollars to the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a stupid name thing anyway. And he had nothing to show for it. How many chargers actually got built? None. Sean Duffy's leading the effort and getting results, and I love it. All right, we move over to the Department of Treasury. And you got the shining star, guys. From a media perspective and an influence perspective, Secretary Scott Bessent. Hands down. One of the most impressive guys. And he's understated. He's not flashy, but he's smart. And this is big difference. I want to ask you this. Do you remember who it was under Biden? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Janet Yellen. I mean, honestly, she's the one that told us that inflation would be transitory. Yeah, transitory. Good job, Janet. Anyway, Scott Bessent, he's not taking a backseat to anybody. He's getting out there dealing with this. In his background, I mean, this is a guy who had a ton of experience, but he's gotten back to the basics of what we need to do. I love how he's not just addressing trade, which is not entirely in his bailiwick, but he's taken up a leading role in that, obviously on tariffs. But he's also talking about getting the deficit under control and bringing in more money to the Treasury. Again, just an amazing, amazing individual. And I think a lot of the reason you're seeing him lead a lot of the efforts is because of this. And I don't think that anyone thought that he'd be a household name when he was getting confirmed. And he is just, I think there's a reason that President Trump is continuing to rely on him the way he is. All right, let's get to the Department of Veteran Affairs, our buddy, our friend of the show. And by the way, remember this, Doug Collins was on air on this show when he got named Secretary of the Department of Veteran Affairs. He's a great veteran. He served both the Navy, the Air Force. But I want to play you a clip of some of the stuff that he's doing. Take a look.
We're 100 days into the second Trump administration, and our progress so far has been historic. The American people gave President Trump a mandate to shake up Washington, and that's exactly what he's doing. Here's the change we brought to the Department of Veterans Affairs in the first 100 days of the second Trump administration. We are refocusing our core mission, which is providing the best possible care and benefits to veterans, families, caregivers, and survivors. That means we're making sure veterans get the health care choices they were promised under the Mission Act. We're taking thousands of employees off of remote work and bringing them back into the office where we can work as a team to better serve veterans. We're phasing out treatment for gender dysphoria and directing all savings to helping paralyzed veterans and amputees. We're accelerating the deployment of our electronic health record system after the program was nearly dormant under the Biden administration. We are processing a record number of disability claims. We're redirecting hundreds of millions of dollars from our non-mission critical efforts to health care, benefits, and services that directly support VA beneficiaries. And we've ended DEI at the department, reversing the divisive Biden-era policies and stopping more than $14 million in DEI spending.
Okay, you get the hint there. He's doing a lot, and he's actually got the focus on veterans, on caregivers, where it's supposed to be. Cutting out the bureaucracy and the red tape to make sure that the people who have served our country get the benefits they have earned. And that's full stop. That's what it should be about. Making sure those people get the health care and the other critical services to make their lives better and to reflect the service they gave us as veterans. I want to touch on two other things before we finish. OMB, the Office of Management Budget. I've heard, if you've watched the show before, you know that I think the hidden gem in the cabinet is Russ Vought. And the DOGE efforts that Elon Musk led are only going to come to fruition under the leadership of Russ Vought. This guy is a master of the budget of the federal workforce, and he understands the opportunity at hand to codify the savings that exist into law. Okay? So all these things that DOGE finds, it's Russ's job to make sure that we root them out, we codify it so it doesn't happen again. Reshaping the federal workforce, all under Russ. These things that are happening, and to make sure the effort continues, all Russ. And so, again, I want to underscore how critical and important that is. Now, the last thing I want to say, and I know it's not a cabinet position, so it's a point of personal pride, is I think that what's going on in the White House comms and press area is so important to mention. Having been a White House press secretary, I know the pressure, the staff challenges that you're dealing with, and what Caroline, Jason Chung, Taylor Budowich have done over there to revitalize that press office, to meet the moment, to bring the content to where we are, and think of all the different ways, the White House Wire, the websites, the digital production, the surrogate briefings, and the other products that they have brought out, to make sure that we can communicate more effectively with the American people, to tell them what President Trump and his cabinet are doing is so important. And I just want to tip my hat to them for all of that amazing, amazing work. All right. With that said, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Keep in mind that you can always go to my newsletter, SeanSpicer.com. To get the latest, please sign up. And obviously, please consider a VIP membership or gifting one. Tomorrow, we got a great show headed your way to end out the week. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.